The question is that the motion be agreed to, and I give the call to the member for Fisher.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Speaker, and I acknowledge your service and the member for Will's service. And there seems to be a growing cohort of veterans in this place, which is a great thing. Mr Deputy Speaker, I've never served in the military. I have a great deal of respect for those that have. When I think of veterans, I think of people like my political parents, Elizabeth and Ron Worthington, who served in the Royal Australian Air Force. I think of my next-door neighbour and friend, Greg Keeley, who served as a Navy clearance diver. And I think of all the men and women that I've met in my role as the member for Fisher through organisations like the RSL, the various sub-branches in my electorate, Young Veterans, SMEAC, and all those veterans organisations which do terrific work. Mr Deputy Speaker, Fisher is home to one of the largest veteran populations in the country. If you're going to retire, why not retire on the Sunshine Coast? And that's pretty demonstrative of almost all lines of work. Everybody, it appears, wants to end up on the Sunshine Coast, and why wouldn't they? But that brings certain challenges, and the challenges that veterans face are many and varied. I've spoken in this place often about those challenges, but it's worthwhile bringing them up again. And those challenges essentially arise out of transitioning into civilian life. One minute, these men and women are flying, driving, sailing, being responsible for multi-million-dollar equipment, and sometimes multi-billion-dollar equipment. They have the benefit of what we all long for, and that's a sense of mission, a sense of purpose, something to get us out of bed in the morning. They have that camaraderie that you would well know of. But when they leave the military, they lose often that sense of purpose, that mission, that camaraderie, unless they replace it with something else. And many young men who leave the military involuntarily, either from a disciplinary perspective or a health perspective, find that transition extremely difficult. And this is where it is vitally important that the Government of Australia, no matter what political stripe it may wear, steps in and supports them. And the member for Riverina said something very poignant in his earlier speech, and that is, not all men and women who leave the military are broken and busted, and I could not agree any more. Our men and women who transition from the military are by and large successful, happy, and go on and lead very fulfilling lives, and good on them. But there is a small number of them that struggle. They struggle because of that lack of sense of purpose, that sense of mission, the lack of that family connection that they enjoyed when they were in the military, that lack of being wanted, being needed, being entrusted to use very expensive equipment. And this is where I think we've got a really great opening for governments of Australia. I have, for every Veterans Affairs Minister, I have been to see them and encouraged them to implement a similar concept to what the United States did after World War II, what they call a GI Bill. And the GI Bill provided free tertiary education to US servicemen, essentially, because that's what it was after World War II, men and women. Free tertiary education to help reintegrate them, to help transition them into civilian life. It replaces that concept of mission, of purpose. Studying for an undergraduate degree or perhaps even a postgraduate degree is a great opportunity to shift your focus from the military into civilian life. I want to acknowledge the great work that's being done by the Australian Catholic University and Griffith University and the University of the Sunshine Coast in this regard. All those three universities are doing some tremendous work without a lot of assistance from governments, I might add. They're doing this off their own bat. They should be acknowledged It is so incredibly important that governments get behind these tertiary organisations and, more importantly, get behind their veterans.